You knew something was up. You knew something was up today when Adam Schefter tweeted out that all of a sudden the Cowboys were at least listening to offers on Micah Parsons, as if they weren't listening before. I mean, the idea that people were calling up and they were hanging up immediately was a little bit absurd. And then the bombshell drops about 45 minutes to like an hour ago. I don't know. I was at Stanley Hardware. I was picking up nails. I have them. I have them in my pocket right here. Micah Parsons is traded. He got dealt to the Green Bay Packers in a deal that nets the Cowboys 2 first-round picks. There might be more compensation coming along the way. You know, David Putney might be thrown in there. But he becomes the highest-paid player in the NFL that is not a quarterback after agreeing to a 4-year deal with the Packers for a whole lot of money. I'm not going to give you the particulars because I don't know them off the top of my head. This is really just a free-flowing video here. But my pipe dream, and I think a lot of Eagles fans' pipe dreams, is now poof. And I did a whole video on this. I did a whole video on, is this situation good for the Birds? Is the trade request by Micah Parsons good if you're an Eagles fan? On the surface, yes, it's good. He's not in your division anymore. He is arguably the best defensive player in the league. If not, he's at least top 5. He's up there. He's, I think, one of only a handful of guys that have had 12-plus sacks in 3 out of 4 years or something like that. I saw that stat on Twitter. And so on the surface, you go, yeah. But if you're one of these people, and I was one of these people, I started drinking the Kool-Aid and believing that there was a shot that Micah Parsons would one day become a Philadelphia Eagle, and that day would be when free agency hit because the Cowboys were going to shoot themselves in the foot. Well, this day, it kind of sucks in a way. The reality is that come week 1, in a week from now, actually, the Cowboys and Eagles game was not going to be dictated by Micah Parsons. If Micah Parsons were to play in that game, you weren't going to sit back and go, man, Micah Parsons was the reason why the Cowboys won. And I say that because the talent discrepancy between the Eagles and the Cowboys is here. And one of the reasons why is because of ownership. Because ownership with the Eagles treats their players correctly. They reward their players for strong play, and they don't nickel and dime them and play hard to get, a la the way that Jerry Jones does things. We saw it with CeeDee Lamb. We saw it with Micah Parsons. We saw it with Dak Prescott. You know, all of a sudden he's popping off in the media talking about Dak Prescott not being worth the money that he gave him. And all of a sudden he is now going to be hesitant to give that money to anybody else. And that's exactly what happened with Micah Parsons. So you see 2 different sides of an ownership coin. You see the good in Jeffrey Lurie, use over here at the Eagles, and then the bad with Jerry Jones. And Jerry doesn't care. That's the thing. I think Jerry would like to win, but his talent, or his organization, is valued at $10 billion. He just had a very successful Netflix docuseries that I'm sure a lot of people watch, but I don't give one fuck about. The Cowboys are doing just fine, so he has the luxury of nickel and diming these players. And it's also the way that he came into the NFL. When he bought the Cowboys, that's the way you did things. You didn't reward players out of their contract. You didn't just hand them money for the sake of handing them money if you didn't have to. But Jeffrey Lurie realizes that this is a new day and age. So when Saquon Barkley should have broken Eric Dickerson's rushing record, he would have if he played in that last game. But when Saquon Barkley does what he does and he's still under contract, he goes, look, let's keep that guy happy. I saw what happened with his last organization with the New York Giants. Let's keep him happy. Let's give him some money. Jerry Jones doesn't do that. So I had this idea in my head, and I think a lot of Eagles fans did, and I know that I'll probably get some comments like, LOL clown, that was never going to happen. Look, if I were to tell you 2 years ago that Saquon Barkley was going to be an Eagle, you would have said the exact same thing. So just pump the brakes on the LOL clown stuff. But I had this idea that he was going to hit free agency. The Cowboys were going to be forced to let him walk. They were still going to say the right things. We want to bring him back, but at the right price. And the Eagles were to swoop in and get him. Now that he is not with the Cowboys, now that he has officially been traded, now that he has signed a 4-year deal with the Green Bay Packers, yeah, it kind of sucks because I didn't look at a situation like the Eagles and Cowboys were neck and neck and Micah Parsons made the difference, which in that case, if the rosters were neck and neck, Micah Parsons probably would have made the difference. Now it's a whole different story. And you trade him to the Packers, who were a playoff team last year. The Eagles beat them pretty handily. But it sucks because you traded him still in the NFC. The Cowboys end up getting 2 first-round picks. I'm not really worried about that because I don't think they really draft all that well. But I think in the short term, this will be good for the Birds, but for all those people like me who had this grandiose idea, this dream of a Saquon Barkley offense, Micah Parsons defense, that is now gone. So that kind of sucks. But I do like seeing the dysfunction with the Dallas Cowboys. How did I just say that? Hit thumbs down for that. The Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, you like seeing the dysfunction, and this isn't going to change. I think the two organizations that have had the worst offseason / training camp, unequivocally, have been the Dallas Cowboys and the Cincinnati Bengals. And the common thread there is really, really, really old ownership. The Browns have repeatedly been the cheapest organization in football. I mean, they act like they are a minor league baseball team, and they nickel and dime their players constantly. You don't know if you heard the report from Boomer Esiason basically saying, like, yeah, we were invited to alumni weekend. We had to buy our own rooms. That is the Bengals. The second to that would be the Dallas Cowboys because of this mess and because of Jerry Jones continuously getting in his own way, and I don't think that's going to change. I hope Jerry Jones continues to run the Dallas Cowboys organization until he is blue in the face. Pardon the pun. Because the fact is, while they will have some good players, and while they will accidentally fall into a good draft pick here and there, this is an organization that has not treated their players correctly. Even when they hand out the check, it's more of like a, yeah, okay, we're going to give it to you, but where's our thank you? And they don't seem to value the talent in the room that they have, the little talent in the room that they have. And I think deep down, Cowboys fans realize this. I think deep down, Cowboys fans look at it like, yeah, all we have is that Netflix docuseries. And I'm wondering, do they hang banners for that? Because on Thursday, a week from today, they're going to hang a banner in Lincoln Financial Field that says Super Bowl Champions LIX. And I'm wondering, when the Eagles visit Jerry's World, are they going to hang a banner that says Netflix Champions 2025? We'll find out, I guess. But I think deep down in Cowboys fans view this day as we're not competing in 2025. And the reality is you probably weren't anyway, not in this division. Because the Washington Commanders have leapfrogged you. Leapfrog you? I am not having a good video. Hit thumbs down. Again, smash that thumbs down. But they've jumped you. And now you are third behind the New York Giants, who are going to start a rookie quarterback. And, they're kind of a dysfunctional organization. So, I guess in one way, it just depends on how you look at the Micah Parsons situation and looked at it in the future. If you believe that Micah Parsons had a shot of being an Eagle, this is a tough pill to swallow because now that has gone by the wayside. But in the short term, yeah, it's good that he's out of the division. You don't have to worry about him. It sucks that he's still in the NFC. You'd like him to go to the AFC. You'd like him to go to like a Denver Broncos, a team that you might see once every couple of years, but you don't really have to worry about unless you're in the Super Bowl. But hey, that's what happens. Now's the part where I beg you guys to subscribe. Subscribing is cool. I don't care if you ever watch another video. Just hit a subscribe button because I need 1,000. I'm going to get paid. So 1,000 subscribers, that's what we need. And as soon as I hit 1,000, I'll stop begging you. Thumbs down, thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't know. As I said, not having a good video. But go Birds. Relegation and the NFL. What does it mean? Well, let's first start off with what relegation is, because if you don't follow the English Premier League, you probably are unaware of how they do things over there, but it's a really interesting concept. So the English Premier League is in a 4-tiered system. You have the Premier League. That is the number 1 league in the world. That is where the big dogs play. And then under that, you have the Championship. That is the 2nd division. Then under that, you have League 1, 3rd division, and then League 2. And then under that, I think it's called, it's the 5th division. It doesn't even matter. But that's where Wrexham came from, if you watch Welcome to Wrexham. So essentially, it's like Major League Baseball, AAA, AA, Single A. That's kind of how it works out. Now, in America, you just have professional leagues, and that is it, all right? There is no crossover. There is no way where the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs could somehow make their way to the major leagues. They are going to be stuck in AAA forever, right? But in England, it is completely different because there is a way. There is a way where the Clearwater Threshers, the Class A affiliate of the Phillies, would work their way all the way up and make it to Major League Baseball. And that is why Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds started Wrexham. That's why they bought the team. They wanted that dream of taking it from the 5th division and making it a Premier League team. And what happens is if you end up winning a lower division, you get promoted. You get promoted to the bigger division. Conversely, if you end up being one of the worst teams in the league, you get relegated. You get sent down. You don't get rewarded for being bad. Now, I'm a Philadelphia 76ers fan. I watched the process. In this scenario, though, the Sixers wouldn't have been rewarded with the number 1 overall pick and the luxury of drafting Ben Simmons. They wouldn't have been rewarded with the number 3 overall pick and the luxury of drafting Joel Embiid. They would have gotten sent down to the G League, essentially. But with England, they're punished for being bad. You're rewarded for being good, punished for being bad. That seems pretty cut and dry, right? That seems like a novel concept. So that's the way they do things over there. And I thought about what would happen if they did things over here like that. It was August. I was running my old works website. I was desperate for page clicks because I needed to hit a bonus. And I thought, with the Premier League starting up, that would be an interesting thing. What if the NFL adopted relegation? So here's the way that I had it planned out. The first thing they would have to do is they have to start off with 6 new teams. I have 2 international and 4 stateside teams. All right, the 2 international teams are London and Toronto. Now, I'm not a fan of the London games at all. I can't stand them. I can't stand the fact that the NFL is just trying so hard to make these international games a thing, but they are. And they started with London, and that seems the most feasible place to have an NFL team. If you're going to have an NFL team, put it in London, I guess. I'm not a huge fan of it, but still, I guess they'd have to figure out the travel and all that, but sure, put it in London. Maybe after all these years, London cares about the NFL. I don't think they do. The second international team, I think would adopt and love the NFL, which is Toronto. Toronto already has the Argonauts with the CFL. They're a bigger market than Buffalo. Buffalo was rumored to be moving to Toronto before the Pagula stepped in and stopped that completely. But Toronto would be a really interesting spot for an NFL team. So Toronto, London, and after that, I just looked at cities that have a deep population, but they don't have an NFL team. So you're looking at St. Louis, you're looking at Oakland, 2 cities that already had teams, but because of ownership, they ended up moving. After that, you're looking at San Antonio, who is the 6th or 7th largest city in America. They don't have a team. And then you are looking at San Diego, which also just lost their team. So there's 6 new teams right there, right out the gate that you're looking at that could potentially, take over, and that would be 6 new teams. But where do they go? Well, they go into a Division 2. All 6 of those teams are essentially the Division 2 of the Division 1, which would be the NFL. So those 6 new teams are just going to play each other. That is it. The NFL's teams, they continue to play a full season as if nothing has changed, but the 6 new teams, they're in a completely different league. They're playing each other, and they're all trying to get promoted. That is the goal of the 6 new teams, is to make it to the NFL and gain promotion. The next question is, where do these teams get the players? Well, they don't get it from the NFL draft. The NFL draft is strictly for the top 32 teams in the NFL. That is it. While those 6 new teams in Division 2, they would have a $90 million cap hit, which is half of what the NFL cap hit is, and they would have to fight it out for undrafted free agents. Now, there's a few things here. Just like in the English Premier League, the Division 2 would have to cut costs. So that's why it would be half of what the NFL cap hit is. You are punished for being in a lower division. You don't have as much money. And conversely, your talent pool is going to reflect that. So you're battling it out with these undrafted free agents or with these guys who are cut. Now, then the question is well, why would they sign with a Division 2 team? It's pretty simple. It's playing time. Now, sure, you're an undrafted free agent from Temple University, and you go out there and you can try to make the Saints, sure. But the reality is you're fighting for not only a roster spot, you're fighting for practice time during training camp, which is now limited because two-a-days aren't a thing, and there's only 3 preseason games. Now, what would you rather do? Your agent is probably actually going to push you to the Division 2. They're probably going to tell you, look, man, this San Antonio squad, they don't really have a good wide receiving core. You're a good wide receiver. You can make this team easily. You're a priority for them. You're not a priority for the New York Giants. You're a priority for the San Antones. So I think that's a spot where it would be really interesting, where you're going to end up seeing undrafted free agents flock to Division 2 because there they can make a name for themselves. There they're going to get playing time. They're going to get tape. Whereas the NFL, they might, if they're lucky, make a roster. And barring injuries, you could end up getting into a game here and there. But for the most part, they're going to end up being a practice squad player. So that's where you would get it. And by the way, this isn't the G League. The NFL doesn't get the luxury of just poaching talent from the second division like in the G League. If they want a guy, they're going to have to trade for him. So the trade deadline would become really, really interesting because what happens in Europe is twofold. You've got teams that are trying to, let's say they're in the Premier League, they're trying to win the championship. They're trying to win it all. So, of course, they're going to load up during the trade deadline, which is called the transfer market. It's a month long. They're going to try to load up on veteran players to win the championship. Conversely, though, you have the teams that are trying to not get relegated, and they also will try to load up. They also will try to get there and get some players to keep them out of getting relegated, and they will end up trading for talent. And then you've got people in the second division, the championship. And it's the same as the Premier League. If you're trying to get promoted, you're trying to load up on talent to get promoted, to win your division, to get promoted. So in this situation, Fred Johnson just got traded from the Jacksonville Jaguars to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 7th-round pick, right? Jacksonville ends up getting a 7th-round pick. If you are at the trade deadline and you are in second place of the second division, you are trying to win your division, you are trying to get promoted, and your left tackle goes down, and you look around, and you've got Fred Johnson. He's an NFL vet. He's started games. The Eagles are offering a 7th-round pick, and you end up offering a future 4th or 5th. And that 4th or 5th-round pick would end up conveying eventually when that team does get promoted. And let's say that team doesn't get promoted. Let's say that team ends up finishing second, and they don't get promoted. They finish third or whatever. And then 10 years down the line, that team does end up getting promoted. 10 years down the line, that pick ends up, becoming something. And then you're like, crap, like we just got a 5th-round pick for a guy I forgot even existed. It would make the draft so much more interesting. But you'd end up seeing veterans that aren't really making an impact at the NFL level or backups end up going down to the second division to not only start, but try to get that team promoted as well. It would make the trade deadline really, really, really interesting. You'd end up having the Eagles and Howie Roseman, who goes like, look, we have a surplus of wide receivers, and Nia Smith, like we're just gonna cut him. Toronto, do you guys want him for like a future 6th? And they scoop him up. So I think that in that sense, I think having the players not come from the draft, and thus you have to fight it out for undrafted free agents, and if you want to make a move, you can make a move. I think that would be a really interesting way of doing things. Okay, so what about the draft? How does the draft order work in this hypothetical situation? Well, I had the top 2 teams in Division II getting promoted, the worst 2 teams in the NFL getting relegated. And in that sense, the team that ends up winning League 2 ends up getting the number 1 overall pick in the draft, and the team that ends up finishing second in League 2 gets the number 2 overall pick. And the reason is, you have to remember, these teams are coming in with talent-deficient rosters. They are hurting big time. They have a $90 million cap hit, which means they have a $90 million roster, and now they're going up against Giants with $180 million cap hits. Now, when they get promoted, they also have a $180 million cap hit. They're on equal playing field, but still, their roster is that of a League 2 team. So thus, because they won their league, they get rewarded with, hypothetically speaking, the number 1 and 2 player in the draft, you would think. And then the team that narrowly missed out on getting relegated gets the number 3 pick, and so on. The teams that end up getting relegated from the NFL and get sent down to League 2, tough shit. Maybe you shouldn't have finished worst and second. So the Tennessee Titans would not be in the NFL. They would be in League 2 coming up for the next year. Okay, so how would free agency work in this situation? It would work just as it would any other year. Instead of 32 teams, though, there's 38 teams. And the 2 teams that just got promoted who have $90 million in cap space to work with, they can go hog wild. They can go nuts. On the flip side, the teams that are in League 2, they have money to work with, but they have to make it work. They have to go to Temu. They have to go to Groupon and make it work. But it would be interesting if the 2 teams that got promoted end up going out there and end up signing a guy to a massive contract. They sign a Kirk Cousins, if you will, to a massive contract. And they end up getting relegated the next year. They're going to have to figure out a way to either make that money work or they're going to have to cut him. A guy like Howie Roseman, who's really good with the cap, he ends up becoming crucial with organizations. They're going to all look for their Howie Roseman, their cap guru, to make it work, because you're going to want an out. You're going to want an out if you know there's a chance that your team gets relegated. You're going to want out of those contracts. You're going to want to cut those guys, and that dead cap hit isn't as bad. But yeah, that's basically just the way it works, as it would any other year. You've got a situation where teams have money, and now you've got two teams who have a lot of money. And do they invest that all in 1 year, or do they go out there and they space it out and they go, okay, we're going to make it work for a little bit this year and stay out of relegation, and then the next year, and there's a quarterback coming out in 2 years in free agency, and we like him. It would become really, really interesting, because you got to factor in, if these teams are getting promoted from Division II, they probably don't have a stud quarterback. So then free agency for that quarterback becomes big, because right now, when a good quarterback hits the market, when a top-level quarterback hits the market, rarely do you end up seeing a feeding frenzy for that guy, right? It's like two teams that can even afford him, three teams that can even afford him, and then are they interested? That's why Tom Brady had essentially two suitors when he hit the market, and it was Oakland and it was Tampa Bay, and that's it. Because most teams either have their quarterback or they're in such cap hell that they can't afford it. Imagine Tom Brady end up signing with a team that just got promoted. I mean, it's like any given Sunday when, Willie Beeman ends up, signing with an expansion team, but like it would make things interesting. Okay, so the season starts. When do these teams play? Well, for the NFL, it's business as usual. They play Sunday, Monday, Thursday, some Saturdays late. For League Two, they play Fridays, Saturdays mostly, and the big marquee game is on Tuesday. That gives the NFL not only a control of some of the days of the week, it gives them control of just about every day of the week except Wednesday. That's the only day that you would not be able to watch an NFL or a professional football game under the NFL umbrella. Because in this situation, you've got Thursdays, some games on Fridays, Saturdays, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday again. That is a juggernaut right there. Now, where they would actually play, and I came up with this idea before Netflix got into the streaming wars with sports, but Netflix. You would have a streaming war with other providers, but it would be either Netflix, Paramount Plus, whatever. It would be a streaming service. And I think it would be really interesting if you were able to come home and stream the game, but also like go back a couple weeks and stream an old game and pull up Netflix and pull up, the London Bridges and pull that game up and watch their entire season or whatever, because you were out on a Friday, you were out on a Saturday, or there's a player that your team just traded for, so you want to watch their big game they had from 3 weeks back. It wouldn't cost nearly as much money as the NFL, but you're seeing some NFL talent in there. And then as for the championship game of League Two, it would be the week before the Super Bowl. There's nothing going on the week before the Super Bowl. It is horrible. It's one of the worst weeks in sports, because you have that anticipation of the Super Bowl. And they had the Pro Bowl in there, but nobody cares about the Pro Bowl. Well, put League Two championship in there, and next thing you know, you have the League Two championship. All right, now we know who's getting promoted, and then the next week you know who won the Super Bowl. I think that would be a perfect scenario for the NFL. Okay, so here's why the NFL would do it. It's really simple. More teams equal more dollars. It's that cut and dry. More teams, more dollars. It's more money for Roger Goodell. It's more money for the owners who employ Roger Goodell. So that's why they would do it. And also, it's ego. No NFL owner thinks that their team will get relegated. These guys are so arrogant that they were... Khan in Jacksonville is a prime example. That guy thinks his roster is really good, and it's not. But he's so convinced. He doesn't even fathom the idea that his team would be one of the worst teams in the NFL. So that's every owner. Every owner thinks that their team is legit. Every owner thinks that their team has a shot, because most of these guys aren't sports guys. They like football. They don't know football. So they're so jaded that they're going to look around the table and they're going to go, oh, he'll get relegated. He'll get relegated. And they don't even notice that everybody's pointing at them. So that's one reason to do it. They're going to look at the big dollar signs from a Netflix, from an Amazon, from a Paramount, from a Peacock. They're going to look at those. And they won't look at what happens if it's to me. So I think that is the biggest reason why the NFL would do it. Why the NFL won't do it, that's another story. The reason they won't do it it's just too much work. I mean, think about how hard it is to get a simple rule change fixed, let alone adding 6 new teams. There hasn't been a new team since 2002, and I'm asking them to add 6, which means asking them to vet 6 new owners or 6 new ownership groups. That is a lot. You also need to find 6 cities that are willing to host the NFL team, which I think every one of those cities would, but you need a home stadium. It's just a lot of headache for a league that doesn't necessarily need it. I mean, the NFL owns days of the week. You know, they're in a good spot right now. And is the juice worth the squeeze for them? Well, on one hand, I go, yeah. I mean, every owner wants to be more rich. But on the other hand, I go, maybe not. Now, I don't know how much work the actual owners would have to do with this. I think it's more of an NFL Roger Goodell thing. But it's such a bold move by the NFL when it's like they don't really necessarily need to do it. I think it would be cool. I think it would shake up the landscape of North American sports leagues. I would be all in favor of it. But what's the incentive for the NFL other than the dead presidents? Because it would be a lot of headache. And I don't necessarily know if the NFL, a league that is slow to adopt obvious things, would be so bold in this venture. So I think that's why they don't do it. This is just a pipe dream. This is an August sports radio thought that will likely never happen. But that's what relegation would look like if the NFL were to adopt it. Please consider subscribing to the channel. That would be cool. Like, dislike. Tell me what you liked about the idea. Tell me what you would change, what you don't like, all that good stuff. And as always, go Birds! All right, joining me now is a guy that I interned for back in the day, the glory days of Philadelphia baseball, because it was 2011. Jon Marks.
Jon, Egan. Hello. How are you?
Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, I have quite an intern tree, if I may say so myself. I have quite an intern tree. I would say that you're right at the top. Oh, sorry. You're right at the top of the list as far as accomplishments and guys that I'm proud of. Very proud of you, Pat. So congratulations.
Thanks. Yep. I recently told my story of my first day during intern orientation. I told the story on TikTok about how I came in and I was just getting over the flu and I was sick and I was running on like 2 hours sleep and Camille thought I was on drugs.
Well, because you were wearing
basketball.
You were all totally up. Yeah, you were all smacked up. Now, thank God you're now sober. You're not doing drugs, but yeah.
Yeah, when Harry Mays called me out on the air and said we have 17 interns all dressed up and one guy in basketball shorts and a t-shirt, that got my life together.
Yeah, you learned a valuable lesson that you should be overdressed, not underdressed. And basketball shorts and a t-shirt probably weren't the best attire for your first day of an internship. But hell, you know what? Did it affect you? Hell no.
It ended up working out, right? You set that bar low, Jon, and then you rise up. And that's what I did.
It's a good point. I hear these stories. My former interns, you gave me that. I don't remember that at all. Salchunas, I was talking to Andrew Salchunas a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me, and I'm like, dude, I don't remember any of that at all. So, my memory has faded. Things are a little bit foggy, but I do remember you were my intern once upon a time.
Yeah, way back in the day. Phillies were good then, and they are good now. Tonight they just wrapped up an 18-4, it might be 19-4, whatever it was, drumming of the Atlanta Braves. But this is after they just got swept by the rival New York Mets. Now the Mets are, as of this recording, losing to the Florida Marlins right now, so the lead would go back up to would go back up to, I believe, 5 in the division. But what's your level of concern right now with the Phils?
So I did Pat Gallen's his show on Sunday night that he has on CBS 3, and he asked me about the Mets series, and I'm like, I don't feel good about it at all because the Phillies haven't played well up there, and they've had a nice run here, and they've built a 7-game lead, and it's kind of like the story of baseball. You're rolling, you feel great, and then you're humbled, and you get swept by the Mets, and then the Mets lose to a bad Marlins team, and the Phillies just put 19 runs up. So, really, none of it changes anything for me. We're about 3 weeks to a month away. I'll say 3 weeks away from really knowing where this team is going to be, because to me, losing Zach Wheeler is a really devastating loss. But this is about the chemistry of the team and the offense and how far they can take you. Because I still believe they have the starting pitching that is good enough. And with Duran in there as your closer, it really, really helps the bullpen. It'd be nice if Alvarado was available, but he's not. So really, in a couple of weeks, I think we're going to know where this team is, because they're going to ride and die with the offense. And if what we saw last year limping into the playoffs, everybody should have expected them to lose to the Mets like they did. They just didn't have it. So we'll see where they are when they enter the playoffs. But do I think they're winning a World Series this year? I don't. Do I think that they'll win a series and then we'll see where we are? It might be a lot about matchups, who you face, who the hot team is. But I mean, I don't feel great. I feel good, and we'll see where they are in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think baseball's the ultimate, like, are you hot at the right time going into the playoffs? Like, I think if we were sitting here doing a recording in 2008, we probably would have said something similar about the 08 Phillies. And then, they end up getting hot and
Right.
going on that run. You brought up Zach Wheeler and his injury. When I found out, I was with my buddies, and immediately I said to them, you guys know what this means. It means that Aaron Nola is going to start game one. And they said, no. There's no way Christopher Sanchez will start game one. I'll ask you, who starts game one of the playoffs if they're able to set their rotation?
It's not going to be Aaron Nola. The problem with the Phillies rotation is your three best starters are left-handed, which is unheard of, right? It's unheard of. You would love, and again, like I said, matchups. We'll see who you're facing, but I mean, is Nola going to be one of your starters in the playoffs? Yeah, you may have to put him in between those starters. Maybe he starts in front of Luzardo. We'll see. We'll see how he's pitching. But he gave up some early runs. Gave up the 3 early runs tonight. He looked pretty good in his last start. That first start off the IL where he gave up, I guess it was it 7 earned runs, 6 earned runs.
I lost count after 5.
Well, I mean, he wasn't getting and between the two of us, we're probably the most notorious, at least in the media, Nola haters. And this is going back earlier in the season where I called him Joe Blanton, and you said you won't watch any of his starts, and I got death threats from people out there. I'm sure you did as well. But
probably.
Like Nola at least has experience. Luzardo is, I mean, I don't know. He's hit or miss. Sanchez looks great, but the Mets hit him a lot the other night. So but it's a killer that Wheeler's not there, because you know what you're getting out of him every time, essentially coming out there. But again, I'll stand by this. The two teams right now in baseball to me that have the look are the Brewers and the Red Sox. And the Red Sox is a true chemistry thing. I listen to a lot of sports radio in Boston for whatever reason. I enjoy it.
Of course you do.
And when they traded Devers, everybody went crazy, because really the trade was to get out from under the contract. And they said, hey, we have these young players. And Devers was a problem in the clubhouse. He didn't want to play. He was mad that they were moving him off third base, even though he's one of the worst defensive third basemen. He wouldn't play first base. He was mad. The Red Sox actually made a really good move, even though they didn't get a lot in return, just to get out from under that contract. And it allowed the younger players, and it allowed those guys to play. And if you look at them right now, they are a dangerous team, the Red Sox. So we'll see. But like, they're going to need, and here's the other thing, Pat. They scored 19 runs tonight. Everybody's going to say they're winning the World Series tomorrow. You don't hit the same level of home runs come October. And if you're an offense that lives with the long ball and dies with the long ball, if you're not hitting home runs, you're going to have a problem scoring runs. And that's something we've seen out of the Phillies in the last two playoff series.
Fortunately, that is very accurate. One guy, though, that did hit a lot of home runs tonight was Kyle Schwarber. He's good at baseball, John. I think we can say that. Is anybody having a worse season than Dave Dombrowski when it comes to the fact that you told this guy, you Jerry Jonesed it. You told him to go prove it. And now he's sitting at 49 home runs. He had 9 RBIs, franchise record tonight. Like, is there any shot in hell in your mind that he is not back in the Phillies uniform?
No, unless he doesn't want to be here, right? I was thinking about this earlier. Like, when we're talking about sports in general, who are the players? This is like a sports radio thing. 610-632-0975. What guys have bet on themselves and it worked out better than what Kyle Schwarber has done this year? Remember Joe Flacco? He went into, I think he got franchised and he won the Super Bowl. He's the Super Bowl MVP. Now, the Ravens still should have told him to F off, because he was never the same player after that, but still. So you do see this with guys where they say, you know what, I'm going to bet on me. And I would love to know what Dombrowski and the Phillies offered him, because whatever they offered him, they probably just cost themselves $100 million, because Kyle Schwarber is not leaving Philadelphia. If you think John Middleton is going to allow Kyle Schwarber after he hits, how many home runs is he hitting this year, Pat? He's at 49 now. What's he hitting? 55?
I go 56, but yeah, some 55, 56.
Mid 50s. He's their best offensive player. This team is still very much in a win now mode. That's not over. He's getting 4 for 200. And if the Phillies don't pay him, I'd be shocked. Now, if Schwarber wants to go elsewhere, I know he was flirting with Cincinnati because he's from that area. And when they were playing the Reds a couple weeks ago, he threw out the first pitch and they were really kissing his ass, which is fine. But if Schwarber leaves, it's not going to be because the Phillies aren't willing to pay him top dollar. Kyle Schwarber will be a Philly next year. I'm as close to guaranteeing that as I possibly can.
I could not agree more. Like I'm on record as saying I have a better shot of being on the Phillies than Kyle Schwarber not being on the Phillies next year.
Right.
Because John Middleton has the worst poker face in probably sports. Like we all remember the JT Realmuto stuff and the signed JT and the stupid money. And he's not that guy to hard negotiate. In fact, he's the exact opposite. And you brought up clubhouse chemistry with Rafael Devers and how that was really an addition by subtraction. Kyle Schwarber is like the glue of that locker room. And he's really one of the reasons why I'm confident of them going deep into the postseason is because when you have a loss of Zach Wheeler, you need a guy like Kyle Schwarber to kind of rally the troops. And you saw what he did tonight. I came out of the Mets series thinking, man, Dave Dombrowski might be the only person happy about this because he was slumping. And then next thing you know, he goes off tonight for 5 home runs and 9 RBIs or whatever it was. Like it was, an insane performance.
Yeah, my Bet Parks pick of the day that I do, you can find it on my social media channels at Jon Marks Media. Today, my bet was Kyle Schwarber multiple home runs. And I've not been good on these bets, Pat. And I went and I looked, I said, all right, how many games has it been since Schwarber hit a home run? Because you're right. It had felt like it was 6 games. He hadn't had a home run in 6 games. He hadn't had that long of a drought since May, the end of May. And you look at the game logs, you're like, all right, sometimes he goes 3 games and he hits a home run. He'll go 3 games, hit a home run, 2 games, hit a home run, 4 games, hit a home run. He hadn't went 6 games, and that's the longest streak all season since late May. So I said, you know what? After losing like that to the Mets, and this is the testament, and this is what you're talking about with Kyle Schwarber. After losing a series like that to the Mets, I can't speak for the rest of the team, and everybody stepped up tonight and they responded. But Kyle Schwarber has been a guy that has shown up in games like this his entire Phillies career. And to come out and have 4 home runs in a freaking game after you got swept by the Mets, it's an all-timer. It's an all-time game. This guy is putting up a Ryan Howard type MVP season. And at what point are we talking about MVP? I know Ohtani and blah, 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 blah. Kyle Schwarber has carried this team all season. And he should be talked about more for the MVP.
I wonder too how much of like in basketball we see it a lot of like MVP fatigue. Guys will win the MVP 2-3 years in a row, and it's just fatigue at that point. Right. You get a new MVP. I wonder if you see that with Ohtani and Schwarber this year, because you're right. Like he's in that conversation for sure. If they end up winning the division and catching up and being the second best team in the National League, and he's a big part of it. He's got to be up there. I mean, he's not finishing worse than 3rd in the MVP voting. I wonder how many people just go like, all right, we got to move on from Ohtani for a second. We'll give it to somebody else. Schwarber ends up being that guy.
No, you're right. Like Lamar Jackson, he had the numbers to be the MVP last year, but I think the voters are like, all right, like we're giving it to him again. He can't get to a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, there's only so many. Jokic won 2 years in a row, and he probably was it 2 years in a row. He probably should have won it again, but you had the fatigue. He hadn't won a championship at that point. Steve Nash won, I think, back-to-back MVPs, and it's like, but you're not even getting to a finals. How can we keep giving you the MVPs? So are you there with Ohtani? Man, he's so good. But you can make the case when you're talking about, because it's like, all right, player of the year, most valuable player. Where is this team without Kyle Schwarber right now? Are they a playoff team? Like I don't know. Probably. Where are the Dodgers with Ohtani? I mean, not that the Phillies have a measly payroll or anything like that. The Dodgers have a $300 and some odd million payroll, right? So it's not like that they don't have a bunch of star talent on the team. The Phillies do as well. But I think you have to consider Kyle Schwarber for the MVP. I really, really do.
I can't help but think though, John, like what would have happened if they had made this switch with Schwarber hitting in the 2-hole and Turner hitting in the 1-hole 2 years ago, instead of forcing Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff spot. I think you're
Yeah.
now. I think you're now seeing that the argument of like, oh, he's comfortable was the dumbest argument imaginable because, like I'm sitting here going like 9 RBIs. Like, what would he have had if he was hitting third tonight? I mean, in the typical leadoff position or in the typical power hitting position, you hit third or fourth. He's hitting second, and he's still leading the National League in RBIs. It's an insane run that we're seeing. And I don't know if we necessarily totally appreciate it. Like Ryan Howard, I think back and I'm like, oh, that's the best power hitting guy I've ever seen in a Phillies uniform. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that like I followed him in the minors. He was homegrown. We heard about the legend of him in Reading and Scranton Wilkes-Barre. And you look at what he's doing this year, and it's like it's arguably better, right up there.
Well, I mean, and it's also like the RBIs, and a lot of that because he was hitting leadoff. The RBIs, we've never seen the RBI production that he's had this year. He's gotten better.
That's my point. He's better.
I mean, I think he's 32. A lot of people talk about they're not doing it anymore. But when we would have this discussion 2 months ago, they'd be like, well, he's old. Yeah, he maybe like 3 for 75. And it's like 3 for 75. I don't care if he's a DH. This dude's getting Black Gritty would say this dude's getting $45-50 million a year. And I think he's played himself even as a DH. Because if you look at teams that are going to have money to spend, and like, what team doesn't want a guy that's great in the clubhouse, that actually has elevated his game, and the hell that he's a DH, but it can hit you 50 home runs. Look at this guy's numbers since he joined the Phillies. One of the great signings in Philadelphia sports history.
Totally.
And now he's overperformed. He's outperformed this contract, and you're going to have to pay him to keep him. And it's been so much fun to watch. I love Kyle Schwarber. He is so good. It has just been so much fun to watch him here.
Yeah, I was dead wrong about Schwarber. I was one of these guys that just did not think that they should sign him. I wanted Castellanos, and I guess that's a good reason of why I'm sitting here interviewing you and not running a baseball team. I'm trying to find out exactly how many RBIs he currently has. So he's 119.
It's crazy.
John, if he was hitting fourth in this lineup, he would have 140.
Yeah,
that's my point. Like Ryan Howard hit fourth, and he was getting into 145, 150 RBI in a season. Kyle Schwarber's at 119 right now, hitting second.
Yeah, you had said earlier about the leadoff spot. I remember when I was on with Ike, we had Larry Anderson on every Wednesday for years. And what we always used to say was that Kyle Schwarber, we would like to see him hit further down in the lineup, like cleanup or third or second, whatever it is. But he just wasn't as productive in other spots. And LA would kind of be like, yeah, like, all right, well, like, go be productive in other spots, right? Like, you're not a leadoff hitter. And Larry's old school, so he wants the guy that gets on base and steals bases and things like that. Schwarber's a high on base percentage guy, but he was also hitting like 190 one of those years, right? So, like, he's wherever he's hit this year, whether it's cleanup or second or whatever, he's been completely comfortable. I couldn't find it on BetParks. I think they took it down after the game tonight. But I'm looking on FanDuel right now. Kyle Schwarber's plus 500 for the National League MVP. Ohtani's minus 900, and the next closest to Schwarber is Manny Machado at plus 10,000. So this is a 2-horse race. There will not be. What just happened on my camera?
We got a good look at your office
on my camera here. But yeah, isn't that nice? On my camera here, if I do certain movements, like if I do like that, it'll. So anyway, there you go.
No, it looks good. I like the shirt, by the way. Yeah, it's a lovely shirt.
Yes, and this is old too. It's supposed to look old, but it is old.
I was playing hockey with a guy recently. He had a Philadelphia Blue Jay shirt.
I have one upstairs.
I was like, dude, that's a cool shirt.
Did he get it at Flacco's in Conshohocken?
I don't know where he got it from. I just had met the guy. I just joined the team, but I will ask him next time.
That's where I got mine.
There's a sport starting up next week called football. It's American football. And the Dallas Cowboys recently made a trade. Are you aware of this trade?
No, so the Cowboys are in Dallas? Is that the team in Dallas? I had heard that, yes, I saw that they made a trade tonight, correct.
All right. There's so many different directions I could go with this, but I think Jerry Jones needs to thank the Brown family, Mike Brown from the Bengals, for really taking away a lot of the spotlight at how bad of a job he's done this offseason. But your initial thoughts on the Micah Parsons trade as a Birds fan
and him getting traded and staying in the NFC. What did you take away from that?
It's funny you mentioned the Bengals because my first thought was there are two teams in the NFL that wouldn't have re-signed Micah Parsons: the Bengals and the Cowboys.
Yeah.
For different reasons. The Bengals can't get out of their own way, and they're notoriously cheap. And the Cowboys, because it's all about Jerry Jones and it's all about ego. Jerry Jones traded away a future Hall of Famer that will now not go into the Hall of Fame wearing a Dallas Cowboys jersey. He'll go in as a Green Bay Packer if he ends up staying in Green Bay for 6 or 7 years, and he's going to be he's a great player. Give me another example of a player as good as Micah Parsons, as young as Micah Parsons, like really just entering his prime that a team couldn't come to terms with and pay. Because there's no other example in recent.
Khalil Mack's probably the only guy I can compare him to, and I'm taking Parsons over Khalil Mack.
Right, and Khalil Mack was a really good player, and that didn't end up working out well for the Bears. He was a good player in his first couple of years for the Bears. And I think that's where you get the 2 first-round draft picks was like, that's kind of, but they got more for Khalil Mack than just 2 first-round draft picks. I think there were additional things that were in there. Yeah. Like, I mean, honestly, I don't think it really changes much with the Cowboys. I was on record for one of the prop bets that I have on Bet Parks, and what was one of my bets was to take Dak Prescott as the passing yardage leader in the NFL this year. And this is exactly why. You're going to get more garbage time yards out of Dak Prescott because that defense is not going to be good this year, and they're going to be throwing the ball. Dak Prescott is the biggest garbage time yard touchdown quarterback in the NFL today. A lot like Philip Rivers was before, especially at the end of his career. I still think Dallas is a borderline playoff team. They have a very good offense. CeeDee Lamb's one of the best wide receivers in the game. So like no one's going to think the Cowboys are a Super Bowl contender because they're not. If they make the playoffs, they're going to lose. We all know that. But like, I would still take the over in wins. I think they're over under 7.5 wins on the season. That's crazy. And like, we'll see a week from where we're recording this right now, the NFL season opens with the Eagles at the Link against the Cowboys. And I'll be curious to see where that number goes. I don't think this is necessarily an easy game. Dak Prescott's had a lot of success, but with all that being said, back to Micah Parsons, it's Jerry Jones and Mike Brown of the Bengals are the only 2 owners that will allow this to happen. And it's not surprising, but it is like, I still can't believe it happened. It's unbelievable.
Does anybody have a number on Micah Parsons?
Yeah. Really.
Anybody have a number on that guy? Here, try this.
And you know what? Like 2 first-round draft picks, and they're the end of the first round. I just like, if you were going to trade him, and Jerry had made comments to Ian Rappaport that this was like a plan that he had, or like this was something that he wanted to do or he was going to do. Like, if you would have really went into the offseason, like Jerry's done this where it's like, all right, a lot of times he just makes guys earn it. He wanted Micah Parsons to earn it again. He made Dak Prescott earn it, which really means he pays him tens of millions of dollars more than if you just pay him, right? Yeah. He actually traded him away, which is crazy. So you could have gotten more if you would have done it the right way, but Micah Parsons, I'm sure he'll be a lot happier in Green Bay.
Yeah, he's. I think he could have a better shot at winning in Green Bay than,
for sure.
than Dallas. It's amazing. Like Jerry is quoted as saying like, "Well, these draft picks could help us. We could get a real player." And I quote tweeted it and said, "Yeah, you might be able to get a player like Micah Parsons." It reminds me a lot of the Titans when they traded AJ Brown and they drafted Treylon Burks. And it's like, okay, so you just drafted a guy that you hope will be as good as AJ Brown. It makes, honest to God, man, it makes me appreciative of Jeffrey Lurie.
For sure. No,
this stuff doesn't happen with Jeffrey.
No, and it never would. And that was my reaction to when they traded for AJ Brown was like, let's just pay AJ Brown. What are you doing? AJ Brown's already like, you already have it. Like he's there. He's in his prime. Treylon Burks, I don't think he's on the team anymore. I think the Titans cut him. No, he's not on the team anymore. So like, how did that trade go down? That's how guys lose their job. Right. And that's why the GM lost their job. Mike Vrabel, who wanted to keep AJ Brown, he who knows what happens if you actually keep him? You have a competent GM. Think about this. And Pat, I'm a little bit older than you, but I grew up during a time where I thought the Eagles were going to win a Super Bowl because they had Randall Cunningham, they had Reggie White, they had Seth Joyner, They had Jerome Brown. They had all of these all-time great players. And we watched the owner, Eric Allen's in the Hall of Fame now. We watched the owner just say, no, we don't want Reggie White. We're not going to pay Reggie White. Like, this was at the start of free agency in the NFL. I watched Keith Jackson leave, Reggie White leave, Clyde Simmons leave, Seth Joyner leave. I watched these all-time great players leave, and it's like I can't believe this is happening. And like that's what the Eagles did. That's what they did back then. Jeffrey Lurie, you've never seen the Eagles lose a player that they wanted to keep. Milton Williams, you can't pay everybody. Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, guys like that. When was the last time where it's like this great all-time future Hall of Fame player that you said, you know what? Like, no, we're not going to keep him. And maybe T.O., and that was over 20 years ago now. And I'm going to have to continue to talk. Oh, Pat's computer died. All right, well, anyway, it really is a testament to Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman, because you're not able to keep all of these players unless Jeffrey Lurie cooks the books. So you've seen this now, and you're going to hear more about it. These owners are mad at the Eagles because they found the loophole, and they know what they can do, and they know what they have to do. Is that if you want to keep your players, all you have to do is be willing to pay them up front. And if you pay them up front, then you're able to redo the contracts, and then you accelerate the signing bonuses, and you rip up the contracts, and you keep pushing, kicking the can. Because for years, the media and dummy fans from around the NFL, but the media didn't even understand what they were doing. Oh, it's going to catch up with the Eagles at one point. It'll catch up with the Eagles. No, it doesn't catch up with the Eagles, because as long as you don't have a dead end, you can just keep kicking the can in the future, kicking the can, Pat. So Jeffrey Lurie willing to spend as much money as he spends is why you're able to sign all these guys. Jerry Jones is cheap as hell. He can sign all these players. Last year, Jerry Jones, Pat, had said they couldn't afford Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry, I think, what did he get, $9 million guaranteed?
Yeah.
From the Ravens. They gave Ezekiel Elliott $3 million guaranteed. The Cowboys said, Jerry Jones said, we can't afford him. We couldn't afford him. You can afford any player you want to. Just give them a contract with the dummy years. They're cheap.
It is that simple. It's your owner willing to cut the check. This is how much of a professional Jon Marks is. My computer died as I was trying to plug it in, and I come back, and you just you kept rolling. That's a professional. This isn't doing sports radio in Shreveport, Louisiana, Johnny.
No, and I did national radio for many years, and a lot of times I was talking to myself for segments at a time because I worked the overnight shift, or I worked the shift. But my least favorite shift, and I didn't realize it because the overnight shift was killing me. So I started doing Sunday night from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., not realizing during football season that a lot of the stations were carrying Sunday night football. So for 2 hours of my 4-hour show, I was essentially talking to very few people out there. And then the game would be over, and you would have the post-game show, and then I would get people that would call in, or then people that were listening again. So I'm very skilled at talking to myself.
Yeah, I always said one of the best hosts at the Fanatic was a guy named Joe Stazak, if people remember Joe, because they would always stick Joe. They'd go, hey, Joe, we need you to do 5 hours after the Philadelphia Charge game. And he would do it. He'd find a way to do it. And I don't know if it was a good radio. It probably wasn't. But big 1-1 tie for the girls. Joe Stazak here, 97.5, the Fanatic.
That's a good Joe Stazak.
Oh, I was, yeah. Well, the impressions they're deep. But yeah, he would end up getting through 5 hours somehow, following like the esports team in Philadelphia that we were carrying for no reason. So
holy crap.
Yeah, it was some rough time right there. All right, last one before I'll let you go after this one, and I appreciate you just holding the fort down as I was dealing with my computer issues. Did you care at all about the T Swift engagement? Was there talk in the house, because you are the only guy in the house, and there are 4 girls in the house? Was the T Swift engagement discussed?
So my wife, like it was around bedtime, because like all the girls went running over. Not my little girl doesn't really understand, but I have a 3rd grader and a 4th grader, and they went running over, and my wife was like showing her something on her phone, and they're like, oh, and I'm like, what is going on? And then it was like, oh, she's telling them that they got engaged. I legitimately couldn't care less. I'm fine with
That's what,
I'm fine with Travis Kelsey, like whatever Taylor Swift. I'm sure she's a total lunatic and everything else. She's the biggest star in the world. Like, she's not really an Eagles fan. She's a phony Eagles fan. I wish them nothing but happiness. Now, I do have to say this, that when they started dating, I made Howard Eskin a retirement bet. I said, if they get engaged, if they get married, you have to retire. Because he was saying it was a phony thing and it was arranged and it wasn't real. And at the time, I was like, yeah, like they look like they're like in love. Like this is legitimate. And I didn't know if I believed it or not, but I was just tweaking Howard. And I made Howard say, hey, fine, I'll retire if they get married. So they haven't gotten married yet, but Howard agreed to retire if they got married. Now, his retirement was forced. He's doing a social media show now. And I love Howard, but I don't know if Howard was happy for the kids, but listen.
Are you gonna hit him up and say, all right, enough? Like you gotta actually retire. No more social media. Yeah, you gotta reach out.
I should text him. Yeah, like, dude, wait till she does the halftime show at the Super Bowl this year. That's what I'm expecting to happen.
It'll be the only halftime show I completely skip.
I can't. So you're anti because. Like
I need a separation between NFL and T Swift. Like there's a separation between church and state. I need that for Taylor Swift and the NFL. I don't particularly like her. It really, really irked me that like she went from being this diehard Eagles fan to acting like she was watching Brody Croyle sling the rock in Chiefs Kingdom. But,
did anybody actually believe she was a diehard Eagle fan?
Well, it's tough when you're in the same box as Kylie Kelsey, who won't even wear anything Chiefs. And it's like, that's my queen. Kylie's my queen.
Oh, yeah, she's legit.
But at the same time, I turn into that gif of Jay-Z when he's trying to act like he's not bopping along and he's like angry bopping. That's me with Taylor Swift music. Because I know it all. I enjoy most of it, But yeah, for a guy that's surrounded by women, I need to get your take on that. And then finally, you're the softball coach for your one daughter's team?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you just went.
Yeah, I'm not coaching. I was an assistant coach. It's fall ball. I'm too busy during the fall with stuff. So springtime I may do it, but fall ball, no. I wish they weren't playing softball in the fall, quite honestly. Because I have cheer, my daughter's in cheer and softball, and then I have gymnastics. And then there's games on Saturday for the football because they cheer for the football team. And then there's competitive cheer that they also do. Jesus. And then there's softball games on Sunday.
When do you mix in Temple football?
When Al Golden and Matt Rule were the actually I didn't see what Nebraska was doing tonight. I saw Nebraska was playing tonight against Cincinnati, and I still follow Matt Rule, and I still very much believe in Matt Rule. Love Matt Rule.
I love Matt Rule. I remember this was after his first year at Temple. The team had 2 wins, and it was me and my girlfriend at the time and like a bunch of her friends. We went to McGillen's, but there was like a back area of McGillen's, like a beer garden area, and we were sitting there and like I'm bored out of my mind. I'm not right. Drinking, and they all went to the bathroom. All the girls went to the bathroom because one can't go by themselves. And all of a sudden, Matt Rule and Phil Snow walked in. And because our table had room, they were like, hey, is there room here? And I was like, absolutely, there's room. Gave away the girls' table. They come back from the bathroom, and they're kind of looking at like, who are these middle-aged guys? And I'm like waving them over like, no, you don't understand. Like, this is Temple's head coach. And he realized what happened. He could not have been cooler. And he was like, no. Like I stood up. I was like, you can have my seat. He's like, no, you're good. And I'm like, yeah, you have.
Uh-oh. Now we have frozen Pat. Yeah, Pat's got to get his recording better. Matt Rule, one of the all-time great dudes. Like just great, genuine, gets it, smart. Everybody loves him. I can't say, and he's Nebraska, and I'm still following and rooting for him and very much believing in him. I was disappointed that it didn't work out for him in Carolina, but I'm not sure who it would have worked out for with that owner and everything right then. And honestly, like he shouldn't have been put in charge of the organization. Matt Rule going to a strong organization with foundation where he's not necessarily picking the players is absolutely positively what would have been better for him. So, yeah, Pat's gonna be back in a second. A forced system update. Well, I'm just gonna talk like too bad this isn't live, so we could actually do it. But yeah, Matt Rule, one of the great all-time guys. I remember was it at a fantasy fest, the Fanatic Fantasy Fest, where we got him to come and like, yeah, because his like right-hand man, who I believe is still out, he's in Nebraska with him. He went to Carolina with him. He went to Baylor with him. It was a local guy that actually knew one of my buddies, and he was just like, oh, give me a Corona. So like, we're just sitting there chopping it up with Matt Rule, and he's drinking a Corona, and he's one of the guys that like when you're dealing with athletes and entertainers and radio people, and I can think of many people in the radio business that I've spoken to in recent years, that when I saw them, one in particular, he didn't ask me one question about, hey, how are you doing? How's your family? Hey, congratulations, you've really done well. It was all about me asking him. Matt Rule's like the opposite, asking questions about you and how you doing. Oh, well, like, he remembers things about you from the past. So
my computer decided to do a complete update in the worst time. Jon, thanks so much for holding down the fort, taking the time, all that. You can follow him at Jon Marks Media. I'm sure he's got news coming up on where you will be working.
Do you want? I can break it right now.
Yeah,
break it. You want to break it right now? And what's the name of your show anyway? I'm sorry. Is it the Pat Egan Show?
It's technically the whole show is Pat Egan's Second Rate Sports Show, but the channel is just Pat Egan.
Oh man, you have your own channel. So coming up here in a couple weeks, 6:10 a.m. I'm going to be back on 6:10 a.m. with Angelo Cataldi. It's Angelo Cataldi, Johnny Marks, and the Morning Zoo. Coming to 6:10 a.m. in a few weeks. So that's my next destination. I broke it right here on Pat Egan's Second Rate Show.
That's
trying to get you some subscribers, man.
That's exactly why it's a second-rate show. I can't wait for the Crossing Broad article. All right, Jon, I appreciate it, man.
All right, Pat. Later, man.
See ya.